Welcome back to DissedMedia, a startup story. My name is Ben Olmos, founder and CEO of DissedMedia. This is a podcast where I take you along my journey of starting DissedMedia from the ground up. If this is your first time listening to the show, welcome. I'm happy you found us, and hopefully you'll like what you hear. For those of you coming back, I'm glad that we piqued your interest enough for you to return, and I hope that you enjoy this next step in our journey. This show is all about documenting DissedMedia's startup journey and keeping you in the loop every step of the way. I'll be keeping you up to date on meetings, phone calls, emails, and all the things that I need to do to get this business up and running. So with that, let's pick up where we left off last time. Welcome back, everybody, to DissedMedia, a startup story. Once again, I am your host, Ben Olmos, and joining me, Alan, we're just going to call you co-host now of...
Hey, man, I'm all in. Thanks, buddy. I appreciate that.
Of a startup story. I appreciate your time and your wisdom and all of the stuff you've been doing to help contribute to our growth. And really all of the board has been doing, providing feedback and giving me things to tweak and to change. And we're going to talk about some of that stuff this week because now DissedMedia is launched. It is the ship is pulled away from the port. And in addition to that, so has our first product, the Daily Pitch, and so has this podcast. And so one of the things that we are just head down in right now is trying to grow the audience. And Matt Sankum, one of our board members, gave us some cautionary notes about trying to focus on your audience acquisition and really fine-tuning that. And one thing that I really found was that audience acquisition is tricky and it's a moving target and you got to try a lot of things. And we're going to talk about some of the things that I've tried and some of the things that are working and we're starting to get some traction on. And I feel like we're starting to get some positive momentum, which, by the way, and let's start by getting into some of the things that we've put out there recently. And one of the things that we put out recently was our board profile of you, Alan. And I have to say, we got a lot of really good feedback and response. And I think what helps in that is you have a really flourishing network of people whom across your career have connected with and you continue to keep in contact with. And I know that when you posted, I should say, the repost of my mention of your episode, all kinds of people started chiming in on it that you've known. So thank you for that. And thank you to all those people who took notice.
Well, let me stop you there because early on when we were talking about intellectual property and all those kinds of things, one of the points you made to me, and I brought it up 2 episodes ago, and I'll bring it up again, is thank you because you're giving me a platform that grows my business while I'm contributing to yours. And that kind of mutual support, a symbiotic relationship, is what makes, I think, in so many ways, makes it unique, makes it special, and creates huge opportunity space for both of us. So thank you for letting my network be part of this.
That was one of my early instincts of building DissedMedia and really inviting the people who I have to help out. Everybody who is on our board also has something else they do. They're entrepreneurs and they have their own businesses and they're speakers or they're academic or they're writers and they're entrepreneurs and small business owners. And so what we want to do is reciprocate. I think that's a really important part of working with people, collaborating with people, is that you can't just take from people. You have to give back. And I'm very big into that, wanting to kind of share this platform and use it to broaden people's own scope. This is a lesson I learned, by the way back in the days of me working at Coca-Cola. Their strategy was always, we're going to help your business grow because as you grow, we grow. And that's just something I like to carry forward in the stuff that I do today.
Well, the other thing that's really important about this whole thing about mutual support is you have strengths, I have strengths, and when we put our strengths together, we're better together than we are apart, I think.
Yeah.
And I think that's what teamwork and growing team and building team and complementing one another is the best way to grow, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And this is why for example, Leslie Ann, who is our resident legal help, somebody who's nice to have on board, Keith, who helps us with finances and making sure that we're keeping those things straight. Of course, we don't have a lot of things to keep straight right now because it's all cost and no revenue, but
a short-term problem,
short-term problem. But yeah, I mean, Matt's wisdom around journalism and running an online media business has been really, really beneficial. And I'm constantly out there just trying to stretch my knowledge and build my understanding of things. And hopefully folks will see that coming through in some of our content. And speaking of content, so one of the things that we try to do, we're called the Daily Pitch because we try and put something out every single day. And we've had some really good articles. Alan, you had a really good one on the power of mentoring. I've been putting some things out there, mostly around leveraging and uses of positive psychology in the workplace. Colin, who is one of our contributors, recently put out an article around the 500-hour rule that is used in the airline industry. What's interesting about Colin's contributions is he always tries to look at the world from a perspective of the operation side of business and how do we see what is happening on the consumer side? How does that relate to things that are happening behind the scenes? So those are all very interesting. But every day we're trying to create something that is interesting that will hopefully inspire people to think differently or more broadly, or even contribute to some of the broader knowledge of things that we're trying to get to. One other thing that I want to mention is that we do actively try and reach out recently, and this is something, not going to reveal it yet on this episode, but I am always out there, social media in general. And when I read an interesting article, a lot of times I'll reach out to the author and say, hey, I really dig this thing that you're doing. Would love to interview you, would love to include what you're doing. And this is kind of part of that strategy of saying, hey, when you see something interesting, that you see knowledge that inspires you, try and share that with other people. And so one of the things that we also try to do is reach out to folks and connect with people. So I say that in the event that we have some people listening and you feel that you have some interesting take on the world, by all means, reach out to us and let us know. So Alan, thinking about all of these things, that the content and stuff that we've put out there lately, what is some of the feedback that you're hearing, or some of the things that are that make you take notice?
Well, I check it. I check the websites frequently, and when you do the podcast editing, I listen to it again too, and grow and learn from it. And so there's a couple of observations. One is that it's a slog, and I can nothing in life that's worth doing is going to be easy. And this slog is something that requires that kind of grit and determination, so that you don't hang it up just because you're not getting the kind of audience engagement that you're looking for. And so your response to the less than optimal audience participation has just been to continue to create more interesting content, different subject matter, incorporate more board material, ideas that are going to be different than yours. And I think things like making this podcast interactive, that's a huge one. And I look forward to us reaching out and bringing in some more interesting people, and then having some really good conversations, because there's not a lot of answers. It's just a lot of good questions. Right?
Yeah. Well, first of all, I don't know anybody more interesting than us. But
now that's good. That's good. That's got to stay in.
But we'll see if we can find somebody. I'm sure. I don't know. Maybe somebody will pop up on the radar. But no, that's true. And that's one of the things that I hope that this podcast evolves into is getting some more insight from people who are not us, that are looking at what we're doing and maybe have some lessons or some learning for us, some things to try. Because part of the audience acquisition strategy, really, it's casting with a big net, or
Right.
using buckshot, right? Because this is not a precision operation quite yet, but that's because you don't quite know who your audience is. And so we're trying a lot of stuff. We're trying some ideas that are served up on the board. And one of those ideas actually came from Matt Sankum, who, as he looked at what we were doing, and he looks at the webpage, and I shared with him my Google Analytics. And one of the ideas he said was, why don't you have, you're called the Daily Pitch, why don't you have a daily pitch on the website? And I thought that was a really neat idea. So one of the things that I've changed up recently, if you go to the site, on the right-hand banner, there is a section called the Daily Pitch. And at least 5 times a week, I'm in there putting together a business pitch. And I say 5 times a week. They get published 5 times a week. I usually sit down and, in my time away from the other things that I'm doing, come up with all these goofball ideas and kind of run them through the same format. And it's almost just a basic kind of pitch format that you'll kind of business school 101. What's the problem? What's the solution? How does it benefit? What do you need to get it done? And so those are kind of fun to put together, because it gives the opportunity to just do some really kind of off the wall stuff. So talking to your pet, or better ways to shop, or
talking to your dog, man. See, but that's the point. You remember one of our very early conversations on the board was about content. Should you cast a very narrowly defined niche market, or do you throw it out there? And I believed early on that the wide approach, the wide net, was exactly right. And some people would argue, well, what does that article have to do with business? Well, everything is connected, man.
Yeah.
It really is. And you can get some ideas just from looking at that. So my compliments to you for that. And also, I was going to bring up the things that you were doing that I ran into last week was the little bursts that show up on a reel, and it has a takeaway and a little bit of music in there and a key point, and you learn from it, whether it's on Facebook or Twitter or LinkedIn or whatever, in the space of 30 seconds. You got a lesson.
Yeah, it's not even 30 seconds. So this is a great segue, because this is part of one of those audience acquisition strategies that I've taken. So I'm always thinking, let me back it up a little bit. What happens when you're trying to run a media business? And we talked about the fact that media is something that always has to be out there. You always have to be in somebody's face. And like, it's very look at me, look at me, look at me. And I'm sorry, but like, I can't, I get on a run and I can crank out a good amount of articles, but then like I get busy, the well runs dry, I go a day or two without posting something, and it's not easy to fill an entire website full of content. And I appreciate everybody who contributes and helps, but as I've mentioned before, we're bootstrapping. I can't pay anybody. So like, I'm in there like all the time trying to do stuff. So how do you stay in front of people's eyeballs, get them interested in coming to the website without having to write all of these several hundred word articles all the time? So one of the things that I started doing, and in my quest for always trying to find new and unique tools, is I put together these 10-second shorts that are a quote from a famous business person or a notable figure in business or government or media, or it could be a number of different things, but basically quotes, kind of inspirational quotes. And what's funny about this is one of the things that people who know me I'm quite a cynical person, and I'm always kind of making fun and making jokes. And one of the things I tend to kind of laugh at is, only because back in the, I don't know, we'll say like late 90s, early 2000s, there was this whole wave of motivational posters. Every office you walked into, it was like teamwork and had some saying about teamwork or courage, inspiration. And it's usually some nondescript figure staring off into space with wispy clouds in the background. And so the cynical pain in the ass that I am just really thought like these things are kind of ridiculous. And so I kind of adopted this philosophy of like, oh my God, inspirational quotes. I'm kind of over it. But it's funny because my youngest daughter, she kind of knows this about me, but she loves this stuff. She's like a sucker for it. We always talk about this back and forth. And I was telling her the other day, I was like, Maya, you'll never guess. So I started doing these quotes as kind of marketing promotion for the Daily Pitch. And I showed her some of them and she liked them. And she's like, oh, these are really good. I said, yeah, wouldn't you know, the one thing that I always kind of make fun of turns out to be the
answer.
I don't know that it's the answer, but it's certainly something that it's something brief that gives people the opportunity to look at something. It's very quick. And like I said, they're 10 seconds or less. And, it draws attention. And so what's great about this is that it's given me the opportunity to launch our TikTok page. It's given me the opportunity to launch our YouTube page. Not only are people liking what we're doing, but they're also subscribing to our channels. And so this is all good news. And I'm starting to see some positive uplift in our traffic as well. Now, the big question as always, is this sustainable? I don't know, but I'm really having a good time creating the video. Well, let me take that back. It's stock video that I use. One of the things I mentioned when I started doing this podcast is I'm trying to share how I do things. So I am using stock video and I'm using royalty-free music. And there's some services that I subscribe to for this. Envato, for example, is a place where I can get stock video and stock music. Canva is the tool that I can use to kind of build these shorts and create multiple, like I do them in batches of 10 at a time. And then I use Social Pilot, which is the tool that I use to post all of our stuff to social media. And I've just found a really good, efficient way of kind of keeping the marketing awareness about Daily Pitch out there, leveraging some inspirational quotes, if you will. So it's nice. It's nice to have found something. It's not huge, but it works, and it's working in a good way.
So let me ask you a question on this, because I think it's fascinating that when you look at the amount of time that you had been investing in all these articles, and you compare it and contrast it with the amount of time and energy it's taking you to do these 10-second shorts, 10 at a time, it sounds to me, I'm just guessing, that it's a lot faster, a lot more efficient, and you're getting more lift from it, and it's more fun. Is that right?
Yes. However, we're not a video platform site. The site is about content and business information and insights. So I wish I could tell you this actually took time away from what I need to do. Unfortunately, it just added to what I need to do. Because I still need to do the articles. I still need to do the daily pitches. What I'm finding is that like the daily pitch is something I need to do. Articles are something I need to do. And now video marketing is something I need to do. So no, Alan, it didn't save me any time at all.
It added to it in your time management challenge, right? Well, let me ask you a question about the articles there, because you're still, I look at the website, you're doing 95%, maybe higher of all the articles that are on there. Now, you've reached out to the board and you've asked each of us to contribute articles as well, and you're getting some of those. But have you reached out to the audience writ large and said, hey, listen, we're bootstrapping. I can't pay you anything, but I can give, here's the key. Just like I said with me, you gave me a platform to share my work and my story. That's payment, man. And so I'm just curious if we open that up to some of the listeners to this, if you might get some articles that would be appropriate for the site.
Yeah, well, I will say, feel free to shoot me a note, either ben@DissedMedia.com or admin@DissedMedia.com. Either one. Yeah. I mean, anybody who's listening and interested in doing some contribution, and with the understanding that I can give you exposure, but I can't give you any money in your pocket, you certainly reach out. Let me know, because, yeah, I mean, that this being a platform for people who are thinkers and people who are inquisitive about things. Yeah, we want this to be for that. So certainly, and to answer your question, yes, I have reached out to some folks, and there are some follow-up that I need to do to kind of get some more contributors going, but it's that multi-pronged problem that I continue to have, which is I've got my core thing that I need to focus on, and that has to be first. And then I get to go play in my sandbox of quicksand.
I'm not standing on that side of it, man. I'm staying on the dry side.
So, because I mean, honestly, like, this is it is a time suck. Now, I'm not saying it's a bad one. I'm not saying that I don't get a lot of joy and pleasure out of what we're doing here, because I really do. It's fun. It really is to kind of have a presence and be able to have a place where you can put the things that are always running through your head. And I'm telling you, Alan, like, I'm always thinking of something related to business, or I see something intriguing. And a lot of times I used to kind of post my musings on Facebook and annoy the people who follow me with my ranting.
Yeah.
But now I get to annoy the whole world and put them out there on a website. No, but I think the website is a lot of fun. It really gives the opportunity to put things also in a structure that is meant to educate and inform and not rant. And one of the things, if for those who've listened to episodes of this in the past, or if you're just listening, haven't heard anything in the past, one of the early things that I said was, I don't want to turn this into a political, just spewing a bunch of, taking a polarized position and saying a lot of bad things about people I disagree with, because that's easy and you can get that everywhere. But so the whole point of this is to keep it positive. If there's criticism, it's intelligent criticism with some explanation behind it, and not just some cheap buzzwords that are going to get people to click on stuff. And to that point, because we have that approach, it means that the growth is going to be slower. It just
Absolutely
does.
Right. Absolutely right. We've talked, the word we used in three episodes ago is enduring. Your content, besides being positive and intellectual, it needs to be over topics that have enduring value.
Yeah. And I want the lessons here that are being bantered about to be something that 5 years from now you can look back on and say, this continues to be something valuable. So yeah, we're going to have content every once in a while that does have a shelf life to it. But for the most part, I think what you're going to find are things that are lessons to carry forward and things that you can build upon in your career.
Absolutely.
So one of the other things that I want to talk about is monetization and ads, because this is something that continues to be the challenge for us. And earlier, what I had become to realize is that SEO optimization helps to get your content in a better ranking position. But part of SEO optimization also helps to normalize the content in a way that might take some of the uniqueness out of it, because things that are unique don't necessarily rank well. And so when you're not unique, but you rank well, you start to sound like a lot of other things. And one of the criteria that Google AdSense tends to use is is there anything of value that you're adding here? So they talk about your website having lean content, and it means that you either don't have a lot of content, or the content that is there is unlike a lot of other things that are out there. And so this is why I think this problem is ultimately going to be solved with traffic, but I'm also trying to monetize at least what we have. And so there's a couple things that I use to monetize. Monetag is one of the companies that I signed up with to monetize. And then the other one is Ads Terra. And so I started monetizing. I really tried to not have, when I say inappropriate ads, I mean ads that don't really fit our theme, our brand. And at first I got a note from Colin, one of our contributors, and he's like, "Hey, Ben, this CAPTCHA thing keeps popping up, and it's like asking me to verify who I am before I can read stuff." And I was like, "Yeah, well, Colin, it's just kind of part of, having ads on the site. It's going to be a little annoying. Sorry about that." And then, Alan, you reached out to me and you said, "Hey, Ben, these ads." So Alan, what did you share with folks? I wish we would have held this before, because I was.
It's okay. So I need to go back to last week when you began the monetization, and I checked out the website. Okay, the first ad that popped up on my computer was for a perfume. And it's right next to this business content. And I'm thinking, well, okay, so ads are everybody. It's a little annoying, but I understand. And Ben has already said, you got to start somewhere. And so we'll work through that, right? Well, okay. So then today I decided to go back and check, and Ben graciously has created on the website a lovely, lovely, lovely spot for me and my shining face there and my bio. And right next to it was an ad about contacting young Russian women under age 30. When I saw that, I said, I'm not sure if that one's going to float too well. So we had that conversation this afternoon, right, Ben?
Yeah. And Alan, I have to say, I feel like these are those things where it's just like, oh man, and you're out there telling your network, "Hey guys, come check out this thing," and Lord knows what's coming up, and they're probably like, "Alan, what are you doing over there?" And
oh my God, you've gone to the dark side. It was so fun. It was so funny. So
yeah. Well, I will say that I have taken some corrective action to remove some of the pop-up ads that were coming up before. So I still have some native ads running about a third of the way down the page. So there is still some things there. When you limit the ads that are running, obviously it's going to limit your potential for revenue. But right now, I don't want to contaminate the brand of what we're doing. I don't want people's first experience to be one that is gimmicky, or makes it look like we're just kind of doing a money grab here, because it's kind of like teaching. I didn't go into it for the money.
Sure.
I didn't go into starting this platform as some gimmicky, get rich quick kind of thing. And so when we do get the audience, just know, folks, eventually you're going to probably see more ads on the Daily Pitch. That is the objective, to grow the audience and get more traction that way. But at the end of the day, we do have to pay for things. We do have to recoup for costs that we have invested in this, and so we'll get there. But I am going to do my best to try and not make ads intrusive or annoying, or take away from the experience of being on the site. And so we'll see. I continue to look for solutions, but at this time, I don't really have anything there. So I've removed some of the ads that we had running before, and hopefully that should help. Because the other thing too, Alan, you were telling me you got your antivirus popped up and it's like, hey, this site might have malware on it, and that's not good. I don't want people to think that I'm trying to dupe them into.
Especially since I forwarded it to my 2,000 Facebook friends, and I click on it. It says, this site is a known bad site. Do not click. I said, better not. Well, the point is, and I think this is the core message, is these are all growing pains. And what we're asking for the audience out there, number one, understand that we're growing this slowly, that we're doing our best and trying to pay attention to stuff like that. So be a little generous with your time and don't write us off if you run across an ad for Russian women under the age of 30. Give us a little time and we'll police that up.
Yeah. Hey, Pentagon friends, check out
my new profile here. Exactly.
Well, if nothing else, we've shown up on the radar of the government, so that's nice. No.
Exactly.
No, but yeah, like you said, Alan, these are all growing pains and things that we'll get better at. But that's kind of the fun and intriguing part of starting a business, which is you're gonna do things, you're gonna screw up, you're gonna make mistakes, and the fun part about doing this is that our mistakes are out there and documented for all to enjoy.
Speaking of enduring, but what, man, we've both been around the block a time or two, and one of the things that about leadership that I think is so fundamental, I don't want to be around someone who can't say, hey, I made a mistake, I screwed up, and I'm sorry. If you can't say that, I don't want to be around you, because we all screw up and we all make mistakes, and good leaders own it, move out, and fix it, right?
Yeah, I mean, I hope so. I hope that, people, I think that's kind of the fun and interesting part of all of this, is that oftentimes when you come across a channel on YouTube or TikToker or some influencer on Instagram, you're seeing the story after the pain of trying to build that audience. And I think one of the things that's kind of fun about doing this and bringing people along for the journey from the start is you get to hear about the fact that, look, some things you're gonna do, like these short 10-second ads I'm doing. Yay, we got to win. And then other times we try to monetize the site, and you get all of these really off-brand things that pop up, and you're like, ooh, that's not what I meant to do. But hopefully what people will get out of listening to this is that none of this is intentional. Like we made an honest mistake. It's like we went and tried to do this thing, and this is what happens. And so it just means that we're going to have to work harder to build the audience, to bring people's awareness to what we're doing, and continue to try and make it grow. So, but to that point, Alan, this is why I appreciate so much your help and the help of others, because all of y'all's feedback and information about how to do things better, how to move it in a way that will hopefully resonate more, all of that stuff helps. And I try to implement the suggestions that I think might work. And so what's funny is that even if I don't implement the idea right away, it's not that I'm not thinking about it. Like Matt gave me this suggestion about the daily pitch like weeks ago, and I only recently got around to finding the time and being in a place where I could sit down and put it into action. So just because a recommendation or some feedback doesn't get used right away doesn't mean that it's forgotten. It just, sometimes things need to marinate a little bit longer before it makes sense.
Yeah, very, very good. Can we talk a little bit about your growth and time management?
Sure, if you want.
Absolutely, because again, in my mentor practice, it's an area that no one seems to have big answers for, and everybody's got different opinions about. And I'm just curious if you'd share with us, as you're growing your business and getting more stuff piled on top of what you already had piled on top of piles, how you're handling all of that and keeping a good sense of humor about it.
Well, so what typically happens when I get really bogged down is that I need to cut away some of the things that are extracurricular and kind of get focused on the things that are important. So, like I said, there's this untouchable sphere that I have of things that I will put ahead of anything else. And those things are the work I do in the wine industry, number one, right? Like family, then work. so that's number one. And then number two behind that, but not a distant number two, like almost like a 1.5 would be my teaching work that I do. Part of taking on the responsibility of being a teacher is making yourself available to people who need your feedback, input, guidance, all your attention, really. So you have to be able to give that. So the way that I do things is I carve out and I say, okay, this block absolutely goes to that, and this block absolutely goes to this. Then I get time for the extracurricular things. And so extracurricular things are doing my own kind of business professional growth. Part of the reason that I started this whole thing in the first place is to give me an outlet to exercise not only my academic brain, but my technical brain. Because, and we mentioned this before, the things that I learned doing this, I'm able to reapply into the primary things that occupy my time. So
absolutely,
there's a benefit for me doing this because it means that I can go apply this and become of greater value to the things that I'm ultimately committed to. So that certainly helps. But it's amazing. I mentioned Getting Things Done by David Allen. That book really helps you to put your life in order. And it really helps you to recognize and adopt strategies for getting things done and ensuring that you do your best to not miss deadlines, to execute on deliverables, to meet the timelines that you set. And the most important part of, I think, accomplishing that is to have your list of things going, and you just don't stop until you hit all of the priority. You always have, for example, there's always something you can pass off to the next day, but if you do that, you have to get it done the next day. And so,
right.
So you can't, when I talk about having to let things marinate for a little bit, and David Allen actually talks about this in his book, it's like having a tickler file. And and basically what that is having a repository for all those things that you can't get to right now, and just put them somewhere. Doesn't mean that you're not going to do it. Just put them somewhere so that they are out of mind, so that you can focus your mind on the things that do need to get done. And so I always have my priority list of the things that I'm working on for the primary stuff that I do. Right. So if it's creating a report, fixing something in our database, adding and updating data, any number of things that might helping new users out, all kinds of stuff that could happen on the winery side of things. I always have that as my primary list. And then secondary to that, it's grading assignments, responding to student emails. So every day I kind of go through the cycle of this. And then after 5 o'clock, then I start to move into my other stuff. And that, by the way, that other stuff, I always say I have my 9 to 5 and then my probably 6 to 10 or
come on, Ben, come on. 6 to midnight.
Sometimes 6 to midnight. If I'm really cranking out, sometimes 6 to 2 in the morning. But I have to say, I don't do as much into the wee hours of the morning anymore than I used to, because I've kind of shifted my routine to get up earlier and work out. And it's amazing, like getting up early, working out clears your mind and then gets you into this ability to kind of knock out all this other stuff. So I don't know. It's kind of a long-winded answer on time management.
Oh, no, it's all good stuff. It really is. It's all good stuff. And it aligns pretty much with what you talked about last time. I'm just curious because you've added to that pile. So we'll see next week what you've added to this pile and how you're handling that.
Yeah, no, I think what ends up happening is once the school year starts, I really start to get solid on my calendar and what I'm going to be doing. During the summer, it's a little bit more challenging because my routines fall apart a little bit. So I do kind of like, starting the new semester because it gets me back on track.
Well, you want to do a recap now?
Yeah, let's hear the recap.
So this is part of my favorite part of the whole sessions here, to reflect back to Ben, the pearls of wisdom that I have gathered just listening to him, which is also part of the way he pays me by mentoring me. So I appreciate that, Ben. So we did have some really healthy and interesting conversation before we started recording. So I won't get into that, but perhaps next session we can talk about this whole business about results versus well-being, empathy versus sympathy, kind of as an important topic. As we got into the session here, you began with describing the positive feedback and responses you were getting from posting my board profile on your sheet and on your website. And I think the key message here to all of us is grow, nurture, and leverage your personal network. It's an investment, and it can pay dividends not only to your business, but to other people's business. So treat it as the value that it should. The second one is that when you're thinking about bootstrapping, don't limit yourself to compensating in terms of money. Look for ways that you can reward people. For example, as Ben is doing with me, of giving me a platform to get my mentor and leadership work out there. And when you reciprocate like that, you build team and you're better together than you are apart. And that's the best way to grow both of your businesses. So I appreciate that. The next piece came when we were talking about content and the challenge of keeping all those articles out there and continuing to reach out and hope that we get some more folks invested in it, to the right kind of people. And Ben said, please send him a note. If you are interested in this work, he's given you an email address and he'll put it in the recap. We would love to hear from you, and you can get a feel for whether your content's appropriate to this website or not just by reading what's already out there. The next one's a little bit of a repeat from last week, but when you were talking about audience acquisition strategy and having to stay out in front of people, and that's been one of the challenges that we've talked about every one of these podcasts. And you mentioned about you're always out there looking for new and innovative approaches, and you tumbled into doing these short 10-second shorts as marketing promotions and so forth. Last time you talked about motivational intelligence, though, and it's that motivational intelligence which is operating in you to make that happen rather than hanging your head when you're not getting the participation that you thought. So that was a key point that you brought up last time, and I think it's an important one for us now. Okay, you talked about this thing about the working the website and having your multi-pronged focus on it. And we talked about fun. And before you'd mentioned this too, life is too short to spend working on things you don't enjoy.
Absolutely.
If you're not enjoying the work you're doing the wrong kind of work, and go find something where you can have some fun. These podcasts are a blast. I don't view it as a burden at all. It's fun, and we learn from each one of them. So again, just the important thing of making sure you're having fun and you're working with people that you respect. The last two here, look, folks, DissedMedia is off the ground, but we're in a sausage factory. And while it may look kind of dirty on the inside and you see some ads and some things like that, realize the sausage is going to be good when it comes out the other end. Bear with us. We're taking corrective action. Don't leave us, because we're doing something different than other people are doing. Ben is showing you what the inside looks like. And he is the kind of leader who is open to saying, I made a mistake. I'm sorry. I'm going to try to do better. We're trying to catch all of that. Those are the kind of people you want to work with. And then finally, this huge issue that we're all facing about time management. And the note I took on this is this concept of an untouchable sphere. Among all the other things that you have to do, what's most important? And then how do you track on that? and treat it differently than the other items that you've got out there. I would just leave when he mentioned Getting Things Done by David Allen. I would add this book, Resonant Leadership by Boyatzis. And the purpose here is, as you're getting things done by David Allen, in leadership and business, you're going to be under stress. And this book is about teaching you how to manage stress in a more effective way. That's my recap for this session.
Awesome. Well, thanks, Alan. That is, it's always, I'm becoming to really look forward to these recaps because you always have some really insightful things to add and some great words of wisdom. And it's funny, I am the kind of person that it's really weird. I always feel uncomfortable when people refer to me as like leader or thing. I don't know. It's a weird hang up that I have. And I've always kind of felt that way. I'm just kind of like, yeah. Let's just move on.
Get over yourself. Get over yourself. We're growing the next generation of leaders, so you got to own it so you can pass it, right?
Yeah, no, I get that. I don't know what it is. It's always been this thing with me that I've never really liked for somebody who puts so much out there in front of people. It's weird to think that I don't love the spotlight. I really don't. I don't like, but I like doing things that are in the spotlight, but I don't like being in the spotlight, if that makes some weird sense. But that's just my crazy head.
Well, you're going to get mad at me for saying it because you always do when I say things like this about you. But one of the reasons that I'm proud to work with you is there have been all kinds of studies, and they show that in this day and age, one of the, if not the most important trait, virtue, quality of senior leaders is humility. And that is a rare, a lot of leaders are very arrogant and they want that spotlight and they want all the credit. And you're just the opposite of that. And I'll tell you what, that is a huge lesson, leadership lesson that for hopefully everyone listening here is realize that you can be a successful businessman, a successful professor, a successful media company owner and CEO, and still be a humble leader.
Well, we're not successful yet. And I will say this, Alan, my biggest problem is that I'm also a successful smartass and pain in the ass. So, and one of the problems that I have is that I have this really kind of awkward, quirky, sometimes dark and sinister sense of humor. And it doesn't always come over very well.
I think I might be the yin to your yang or something like that.
You can help me out in that regard because the guy, I've learned to filter myself a little bit more. But anyways, well, folks, thanks for checking out the podcast once again and getting a little update on where we are and where we're going. And I am really looking forward to what we're going to be doing as we continue to head down this path. So with that, my friends, adios.
Stay with us. Adios. Until next time.